So is it perfect or
It's on.
you probably can't see me, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, we can see you. There's like no one.
Is it filming?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, yeah. So we're gonna present you BMW. So problem statement is BMW on the right path to become a transnational company, given the activities and strategies the automobile company is currently engaged in. So for the agenda, we will first have a short introduction. Then we will talk about MNE as BMW as an MNE. Then BMW and its clusters, followed by building a competitive advantage. Afterwards, we're going to talk about operating a T-shaped structure, BMW's reverse innovation, BMW's worldwide innovation, BMW's strategic important environments, BMW's posture, and a conclusion.
Okay, so BMW is a luxury vehicle company, and it was founded in 1916 by Mr. Rapp and Mr. Otto in Munich in Germany. And today it has its headquarters in Munich as well, and is furthermore the parent company of the two subsidiaries, BMW Mini and Rolls-Royce, which both have their headquarters in London. Talking a bit about BMW's administrative heritage. BMW started as an aircraft engine company, and actually the symbol of BMW should symbolizes the aircraft propeller with white blades cutting through the blue sky. So with the end of World War II, BMW was forbidden to further engage in the aircraft engine industry, and so they already established a toehold there and moved on to automobile vehicle manufacturing. Today, BMW is following its mission to become the world's leading provider of premium products and premium services for individual mobility. And they try to achieve this by creating an emotional bond between the vehicle and its driver. So we thought that BMW is already a multinational company on the way to become a transnational company. And why we thought this is because BMW is engaging in a balanced distribution of sales through their worldwide sales operating network, and also a balanced distribution of their value chain. They do this by making direct investment in their main markets, Asia, Europe, and the US. And they established fully owned operate manufacturing plants in these countries to enter the foreign markets more easier. And also they sign a lot of direct dealership contracts so that they can adapt their marketing strategy better to local differences. And by doing so, BMW is able to have a bond to key suppliers, and also due to their manufacturing plants in low labor countries, they have a low-cost input, which also increases the value in general. And furthermore, BMW is a coordinated federation, which means that they control the operation from their headquarters in Germany, and they furthermore also active manage their subsidiaries from Munich. As an example, BMW Mini, which is located in the United Kingdom, is following strict rules towards the headquarters of BMW, as for example to adapt to the predetermined BMW design and technological development. So in general, what BMW does is trying to integrate their subsidiaries into the cooperation, whereas the subsidiaries still are able to operate to a certain level autonomously completely.
So now BMW and its clusters. So clusters are groups of independent companies in the same geographical region that are interconnected through a network. So they improve the availability of resources to users and distribute workload while stimulating healthy competition that fosters productivity and innovation. So back in 1968, BMW tried to create additional value by accessing low factor cost of production, and so they opened their first foreign production plant in Rosslyn, South Africa. The lack of industry clusters, expertise, and specialized workforce forced BMW to reconsider the plant location and lead them to expand to Mexico and South Carolina in the US. So first, BMW joined the local automotive cluster in Spartanburg, South Carolina in the 90s. Companies within the South Carolina cluster enjoy shared labor pool and use transfer of know-how and skills. Then by entering Mexico, BMW gains advantages of further adding value to its products, lower labor costs, and also tactically establish the plants as close as possible to key resources and strategic positions. So this all helped BMW transition from a coordinated federation to an integrated network and a transnational organization over time. Then, aside from the benefits of inter-unit collaboration and cluster formation, BMW simultaneously follows another path to achieve competitive advantage towards global competition by optimizing its global scale efficiency, its multinational flexibility, and its worldwide learning. So to increase the global scale efficiency, BMW has to increase the value of outputs while decreasing the value of its inputs. At the same time, BMW is trying to minimize different kinds of risks to gain a multinational flexibility. So firstly, it reacts to macroeconomic risks, for example, with the impact of climate change in the automobile industry by producing clean energy cars for the future, such as the electric car series i3. Then secondly, there are also political risks that can be crucial limits to BMW's foreign operations. And finally, resource risks and uncertainties about the actions that worldwide competitors take represents another comparative risk. Then sophisticated, established production bases in crucial clusters leads to a cost reduction within BMW's value chain, where access to appropriate manpower and resources leads to a competitive advantage. So worldwide learning is also a key component of BMW's global competitive advantage.
Okay, so going to the T-shaped structure. So BMW operates a T-shaped structure. I'm sure that all of you remember what a T-shaped structure is, but just to refresh your memory, so basically we all live now in a globalized world, and in a globalized world, to stay relevant, you need to adapt to localized differences. So basically the T-shaped structure is the way to do that. Basically you try to integrate both horizontally and vertically. So going to the horizontal stroke. Horizontally, what BMW does is that they have, like we said, they're a coordinated federation. So basically they have centralized control in their headquarters in Munich, and then they give some form of autonomy to their subsidiaries abroad. This allows them to, of course, leverage the knowledge that they gain specifically from each segment or from each geographic location, and then manage it from one central location. Vertically, what BMW does is that, of course, they give a lot of autonomy to their independent geographic locations. So, for example, they give a lot of autonomy to the mini subsidiary, or they give a lot of autonomy to their R&D departments. And in their R&D departments specifically, they segment it across the world. So they have three main sort of, we can call them hubs where they do R&D. So they have China, they have the United States, and then of course they have Germany, which was the first hub that they created. And each of these individual geographic locations performs R&D for BMW using the local tastes to create this R&D, and eventually by integrating both horizontally across the organization and vertically they can create multinational flexibility. So going to, yeah. So now a second thing that BMW does, which also ties into the T-shaped structure, is reverse innovation. So if you guys remember from the book, the reverse innovation is basically a form of innovation first seen in the developing world that we then export to a developed country. So if you can see here, we have a map that illustrates it quite well. So traditional innovation is usually you go from a developed country and you export the innovation to a developing country, and then reverse innovation is of course the opposite way around. One example of BMW's reverse innovation is through their joint venture in China, which is called BMW Brilliance, which is basically a joint venture they set up because it was easier to do than acquiring or merging with a company, given the political situation in China and all the obstacles that exist to merge with Chinese companies. So what they first do is, of course, they create innovation in the local market. So for example, like I talked about in the previous slide, they basically have R&D set up in China, which is tailored to the local needs. When they have that R&D that is tailored to the local Chinese needs, they can create new products that are tailored to Chinese consumers. Eventually, when they have that new product, for example, in the case of China, they created an off-road version of the X1. They also created variants of the X3 and not X3, of the i3 and i5 series, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And they basically, what they can then do once they created that innovation is export those products to other markets. And that's basically reverse innovation. So you create innovation in a developing country, and then you export that innovation to a developed country. So yeah, that's BMW and reverse innovation.
If you're going to BMW's worldwide innovation, BMW is engaging in local for local innovation as well as a center for global innovation. The example Maurice mentioned with BMW Brilliance is proof for their local for local innovation. So the joint venture in China is especially focusing on the Chinese market segmentation, and Center for Global Innovation is can be explained by BMW operating as in general as a coordinated federation with centralized control in their headquarters. BMW's overall goal is to make efficient future innovation and technology, which aligns with their mission statement to become the major provider of premium services and products. And BMW is trying to achieve its goal by responding to national needs through their subsidiaries and distributed R&D centers. It further tries to gain subsidiary input. As an example, BMW Brilliance again that they engage in reverse innovation, and also responsibility transfer could be also explained by their R&D center, which actually pull all their gained knowledge together since they are distributed all over the world. And BMW is trying to make the most efficient use of this pooled knowledge to further engage in the field of future technology and innovation development.
Then about strategic important environments, BMW's headquarters in Munich in Germany is deeply competent engineers, is considered as one of the strategic leaders, as well as a competent plant in South Carolina in the US, because it operates also in a highly strategic important environment, and thus is also a strategic leader. Then, considering BMW's South African plant with limited potential, it used to serve as a black hole, but since it will become an implementer with the forecasted opening of the Mexican plant in 2019. And therefore, Mexico can be seen as a contributor to BMW because of the high competence in the workforce within the local organization, despite operating in a strategically unimportant environment.
Okay, so then finally coming to BMW's postures. So like we all remember these postures from chapter 8, which were basically exploitative, transactional, responsive, and transformative. So we, looking at all this stuff that BMW has done in the past few years, came up with the fact that BMW is actually a transformative M&E, because they do three things very well. One, they invest in solving local problems. So how do they do this? For example, one thing they do in South Africa is they invest in both healthcare and education for the local population. They do this by buying, for example, equipment like computers and machinery for South African students. They invest heavily in teaching South African students to become, to learn about the natural sciences. Another thing they do, for example, in China is they teach children in China how to drive safely, because in Chinese culture not a lot of people drive, and in the future if they want to have more Chinese people to drive and have a bigger Chinese customer base, they need to make sure that these children which will be their future customers can drive safely. So that's one key thing that is associated with the transformative M&E. Then secondly, of course, they're trying to alleviate the poor. So one thing they do, of course, this goes back to trying to make sure that the South African kids and the Chinese kids have the skills that they need in the future to be successful. There's, of course, in the long run, is going to make sure that they have a higher income and eventually get out of poverty. And then thirdly, this ties into both things that I said previously. Basically, they're trying to create the customers of the future. Obviously, in the short term, trying to invest in all these things like healthcare and education is not going to be beneficial to BMW, because they're putting in a lot of money, but they're not getting a lot of return. But in the long run, this is going to be very, very good for BMW, because they create an image of the company that they actually care about the local population, and at the same time, since they're alleviating the poor, they're creating the customers of the future, which will be able to buy their products, which are premium cars. So all in all, like looking at everything, we can say that BMW is a transformative M&E, and they're basically already a transformative M&E, so they don't really have to do what they can do. They always can do more, but they don't really have to do one specific thing to be more transformative. So finally, coming to our conclusion, if you looked at our problem statement in the beginning, is BMW on the right path to become a transnational company given the activities and strategies that the automobile company is currently engaged in? So one thing that BMW has to do better, that they're working towards, is be able to leverage their local and global goals. So they have to make sure that they don't create conflict between their local and global goals. They're doing that right now, but they can do it a bit better. The second thing that they can do, that they already do, is basically they have all these clusters that are involved in, for example, in South Carolina and stuff like that, that give them global scale efficiency. They have a T-shaped organizational structure, which allows them to basically take back-end activities horizontally, and then front-end activities locally, which allows them, of course, to be multinationally flexible. And then lastly, they use joint ventures and reverse innovation to create worldwide learning. They basically innovate in the local market through joint ventures and through themselves, and then export that innovation to foreign markets, which allows them to create worldwide learning. And so in the end, we can say that BMW is on the right path, given all these facts, to become a transnational company, given the activities and strategies that the company is involved in. Thank you for your attention.